for today's cup of coffee, I found a story that we deal with a lot of odd and weird things.
Mm-hmm.
This one has really freaked me out
I'm intrigued of what it is.
because
I have no
of
idea.
what it potentially could have been, how it looked. It's freaky.
Uh-huh. A
And,
little bit more detail to that.
oh yeah. And this comes from Mysterious Universe. One of our favorites, Brent Swancer. God love him.
Oh, Lord.
And he wrote this
Oh,
on
Lord.
September the 6th, 2021.
Comes loud vehicle.
And of course, every time, I mean, there was nothing that went up and down the road. Nothing. And it happened. Anyhow. And this, the title of the article is The Incredibly Bizarre Story of Sandown Sam.
Excuse him, what?
Sandown Sam.
What is that?
Well, we're going to find out.
Okay.
And so there is in the UK the Isle of Wight, and it's a peaceful seaside resort town of Sandown.
Never heard of it.
I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope it's not Sandown. It should be Sandown.
Once again, never heard of it.
I'm going to call it Sandown. So
Sand dune.
no, it's not Sandown. So Blue, you can correct me if I'm inaccurate on that. And you know, this sounds like a nice place. It sounds like some place that we would enjoy. It's got Victorian style shops.
Ooh.
And, you know, sceneries, and it's got like a beach because it is a seaside town. So that sounds like some place that we would love to visit.
You know a place I would love to visit also? Winston-Salem.
Oh, yeah, they've got lots of stuff down there. We've gone through Winston-Salem. They have moss hanging from the trees down through there and stuff. Anyhow, this nice little resort is, you know, one of the most bizarre paranormal encounters that has been.
Okay.
And I did look at other sources, and they all basically said the same thing, so we'll go with Mr. Swancer because we frequent his writings often.
Yeah, but he also puts a lot of flowery.
He does. He does.
Well,
and
I want
it's
something that's straight to the point.
well, that's why I have a highlighter.
If I want to read a book or a poem, I'll read a book or a
This
poem.
is why I have a highlighter. Okay, so in May of 1973, a 7-year-old girl known only as Faye was with a friend of the same age on vacation there in Sandown with their families. As they were playing in the area of Lake Common, they allegedly heard an odd noise like the wail of an ambulance siren.
Okay.
Could have been cicadas.
Yeah.
And supposedly this was reverberating through the air from somewhere nearby.
All right.
And the two kids went off to investigate, coming to the edge of the Sandown golf course. And so they decided that the wailing was coming from the swampy woods beyond the golf course.
Okay.
And the strange wailing continued to echo through the area, and the curious children continued their search for its source. They weren't scared, merely curious, but this would change when they reached a footbridge within the woods beyond the golf course. As they reached the bridge, the wailing abruptly stopped to send silence crashing down upon them, Mr. Swancer. And as it did, they noticed something very eerie. And a report in the January-February 1973 edition of the Journal of the British UFO Research Association, Bufora, that's what it spells Bufora, they had said what would happen next. Quote, a blue-gloved hand appeared from under the bridge and a strange figure emerged. He was nearly 7 feet tall and had no neck, for his head appeared to be wedged straight onto his shoulders.
Okay.
He wore a yellow pointed hat, which interlocked with the red collar of a green tunic. A round black knob was affixed to the top of his hat, and wooden antennae were attached either side. The face had triangular markings for eyes, a brown square of a nose, and motionless yellow lips. Other round markings were on his paper white cheeks, and a fringe of red hair fell onto his forehead. Wooden slats protruded from his sleeves and from below his white trousers. The figure fumbled with a book, dropped it in the water, then splashed about to retrieve it. The two then watched the figure enter a metallic hut, similar to those used on building sites, except that it had no windows.
Okay.
It moved along with a strange hopping motion, with the knees raised high. End quote.
So it can't walk normally, it only hops.
Pinocchio. He wanted to be a real boy. I don't know.
Oh God, a bug has crawled into my ear.
Oh, good God. Anyhow, the children would later basically describe him as looking sort of like a creepy, robotic clown.
Ew.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no problem with clowns, but...
No.
Robotic clowns?
Any of it. Now, the children were startled, but their curiosity was too strong to allow them to run away. And instead, they approached closer to the little hut in the woods. And the way that they the depictions of it is sort of like a Quonset hut. That's what they call them. I don't know what other, it's a Quonset hut. What can I say?
Right.
As they did, the wailing sound began again, and the figure reappeared with a black knobbed microphone to say into it, "Hello, are you still there?"
The fuck?
The voice sounded as if it had been spoken from right beside them.
Ew. Okay.
And the kids finally are starting to back away.
Finally!
With fear creeping into them. And it says, perhaps sensing that they were scared of his voice-throwing microphone, the bizarre entity took out a notebook and scrawled onto it a message which it held up for them to see, and which read, "Hello, I am All Colors Sam."
All Colors Sam. Okay.
And this seems to have been enough to reassure the kids, who stopped backing away and warily walked closer to the entity. Of course, again, this is 1973, so hadn't had a lot of the connotations with clowns then as we do today.
I don't know. There were some clown movies from then, but whatever.
So anyhow.
Alright.
So the kids asked Sam why his clothes were so worn out, and he said that they were the only clothes he owned. And his voice again seeming to materialize from right next to their ears. So he has a little bit of ventriloquism going on.
Cool. We love that.
It says, as he spoke, oddly his mouth never moved. And they asked him if he was a man, and he said, "Well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way." I could go so many places with that sentence, but I won't.
I mean, he's not a human, is what he's saying.
Okay, when they pushed further and asked just what he was, he cryptically replied, "You know." Now, that would freak me out totally, and it's like, no.
No, I need some clarification, I'm sorry.
And it's like, Sam also told them...
I only got one brain cell.
Sam also told them that there were more like him, that they had another base on the mainland, and that he was afraid of humans because he had been attacked before. I call bullshit. The entity then invited the children to come inside the hut, which would be creepy enough to call it a day, but they took him up on the offer and went inside to find it to be rather cozy, with an eclectic array of wooden furniture, an electric space heater, and a second level above them. On the table was a plate full of berries, which Sam claimed were his main food source. Main food source. Okay, what other food sources did he consume?
Berries and cream. He's a little lad that loves berries and cream.
I knew that was going to trigger that, but anyhow. Sam finally removed his odd hat and produced a berry, which he stuck in a rounded white ear, only to have it suddenly appear in his eye socket and then appear within his mouth with a couple of flicks of his head like some kind of magic trick.
So he does, of course it's magic trick. That's pretty cool.
This delighted the children. They did. I don't know. These kids must have been bored. And it caused them to calm down.
I mean, that'd be cool as hell to see.
No.
I would like that. I would like to see that.
And they eventually stayed in the hut for around an hour before saying goodbye and heading back home. When the girl told her father, rather than outright dismissing it, he actually went down to the area to investigate, partially out of concern that there was some kind of weirdo dressed as a clown, but also the father had experiences with UFOs in the area.
Oh.
And so it was perhaps that which made him not willing to outright dismiss it.
Right.
So good on the father on this.
Yeah.
And so there was no trace of Sam or the weird hut when he got there. And no one else in the area had seen anything like what was described, although the children were adamant that the metal dwelling had been right there and that their story was completely true. Despite not finding anything, the father was unwilling to write it all off and would later say, quote, "I get the impression that Faye was somehow taken into a bubble of alien reality created by this strange personage. He told them he had just made the hut. Also, Faye told me that while they were talking to this ghost, 2 workmen nearby were repairing a post. They paid no attention to the weird charade, as though they could not see it," end quote.
Huh.
And the so-called Sandown clown has not been seen since, and it is also completely surreal that it's tough to know just how to classify this case. Everybody needs a category for just weird.
I would love to see that.
Mm-mm.
I would.
And some have questioned whether Sam was an alien, a ghost,
Who
some
cares?
interdimensional interloper, a shared hallucination, or a sicko in a freaky clown outfit.
Oh my god.
Now I agree with Swancer on that one.
I disagree.
Some have suggested that the children may have eaten some berries out in the woods that had been psychotropic and caused them to hallucinate.
Oh my god.
And then there's the possibility
Baby's
they
first psychedelic.
just made it all up. Now I've got a question. Even if they had eaten berries, why would they have the same hallucination?
Right, exactly.
So that's not feasible.
No.
And one very odd theory, like the other ones were not odd, was that Sam was actually a type of man in black figure in response to the father's UFO sightings. And an article from the site The Curious Archive, and I did find this, and I will include it in the description box as far as the references, says of the idea, quote, "This is absurd, and I'm only throwing the idea out there because the story can't get any weirder than it already is. To put it simply, men in black are often put into 2 categories. The first is FBI-like agents in black suits with stern expressions and a we mean business attitude. The second is a similarly dressed human with strange mannerisms and something off-putting about their appearance. Both types have been reported to show up if a person has witnessed or is investigating UFOs. Now, Faye herself wasn't said to have witnessed a UFO, but her father had apparently been dealing with them following him around for the past few years. Could Sam have been there to ask Faye questions about her father? To compare Sam to an infamous man in black sighting, we can look back to 11/17/1976. The September 11th thing keeps rolling around, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When a man in black supposedly visited Dr. Herbert Hopkins, family physician, in his home in Maine, USA. At the time of the visit, Hopkins was conducting research on a UFO incident. In 1978, he reflected on the incident and the man in black on NBC radio. And Mr. Hopkins said this character was as bald as an egg. He didn't even have eyebrows or eyelashes. It looked like he had smooth plastic skin, like a doll, except it was dead white color. His lips were a brilliant ruby red, and he spoke in an expressionless, monotone, scanning speech. He constructed no phrases and sentences, just a sequence of words evenly spaced. His voice was completely passive, with no inflection or intonation, as if you were hearing it from a machine that could talk. Then I could see that his mouth was a perfectly straight slit. Apparently, he did not have what we call lips, so the lipstick was put on as a decoy. His mouth was more like a ventriloquist's dummy. End quote. And going back to the Curious Archive, that writer said, sounds somewhat familiar. Whether we believe anyone in this crazy story, it is interesting how the strange appearance and way of speaking are so similar between Faye's encounter with Sam and Hopkins's experience with the man in black. While not exactly similar, especially with the clothing, there is enough to raise to a few eyebrows. It's also worth highlight that most of the conversation between Sam and the children wasn't disclosed, including whatever was discussed during the half-hour visit in the shack, other than the weird berry trick. Could he have been inquiring about what her father had seen? This, of course, entirely speculative and based on nothing but my own enjoyment of these stories, so take from it what you will. Yeah, I think that part where it said that most of the conversation was not disclosed, you have to really, really wonder.
Absolutely you do.
But and I guess, again, kids in the 70s were not like they are today. I cannot even imagine a 7-year-old in today's world not being freaked out by a 7-foot-tall clown thingy. Wouldn't. It was like one of those little wooden toys come to life almost.
I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be freaked out by that.
Oh, you would? You would.
No, I wouldn't be.
But because
I've always liked weird things.
Well, yeah, but there is the difference between liking the idea of a weird thing and having an extremely weird thing right in front of your face.
You're talking to a kid who has had ventriloquist dummies
most of his that's life. True. Ew.
And marionettes.
Ew. Well, the marionettes are not so bad.
Clown marionette.
But, I mean, 7-year-olds, yes, they can be imaginative. But to have that degree of detail in what they said, no. I cannot imagine them being able to articulate that if they had not seen it.
So then how did the person know? How did the dad know?
The dad knew that his daughter wasn't lying.
Yeah, but how, if she was not able to articulate that, how did they get all the details of him then?
Well, I'm sure that it was a matter of explaining. I'm saying that she probably did not have the ability to produce a story out of her imagination that had that degree of detail.
I don't know about that, because some kids aren't that imaginative.
2nd graders?
Yeah.
When was the last time you was around 2nd grader?
When I was in 2nd grade.
Okay, so weren't able quite to
remember. But still, I have heard stories of some kids who are 7, 8-year-olds. They had quite the imagination.
And even if she was a prodigy of sorts, which it doesn't say that she was, she's just like normal little 7-year-old girl. What did the little friend do? He just sat there and nod? Oh, yeah, that's what we saw.
I guess so.
So, but
I guess so.
That just, no, some alien clown, no. It's like, what is it, Attack of the Killer Clowns or Killer Clowns from Outer Space?
Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
If you haven't seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space,
it's a horrible movie.
It is not a horrible movie. It's a good movie.
It's a campy, cheesy movie.
It's like a cult movie, and it's one of the few.
It's almost like the Ginger Dead Man.
It's one of the few that actually went with the clown theme in a horror way.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people they couldn't, they didn't pull that off. But Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I really do like that, except for that it's clowns.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think that's a really interesting story. I really do.
it freaked me out.
I don't. See
It truly did freak me out.
I don't see how that freaked you out.
It's a 7-foot tall wooden-ish clown thing.
Mom, there are 10 feet tall marionette things that, like, in cultures, they literally build them, like in Mexico or whatever. They build this marionette of sorts that's very, very tall once a year, every year, and they burn it down.
Right. Are you talking like Burning Man type
No.
thing?
No. It's completely different.
Okay. Well, something that I did think about, when they have, like, Carnival and different things like that, and they have the people that walk on stilts.
Those are cool.
They are cool. But as far as, could this have been somebody in some kind of a costume like that in the area?
But how would he be able to speak then?
Right. Well, he couldn't. That was the whole thing as far as...
Of course, then again, ventriloquists, it's very easy, well, for them to, make it sound like or to speak without, having their lips move and such.
Right. So could that... Yes and no. I mean, when they talk about throwing their voice and stuff, I mean, the dummies are right there with them.
Mm-hmm.
So in some ways, it's very much the illusion of it. Jeff Dunham is brilliant doing that. If you've never seen Jeff Dunham and his ventriloquist act, that's worth seeing too.
But like you said, the dummy is literally just a prop.
It is a prop.
Like, so if you take away the dummy, it's still going to look the same, basically.
Right, and I mean, you can see them move their mouth slightly because they have to.
They have to, yeah.
Because it's the illusion of projecting the voice. Again, it's that suspension of belief.
Mm-hmm. But some actually can look like they are not moving their mouths at all.
Right, but I mean, as far as to project it so many yards away, no.
Now, to have it, it's not possible to have it sound like, oh, it's right beside you.
Right.
But it's possible to throw your voice to a point where it sounds like it's muffled or it's in another room.
Yeah, but it's like, how did they... I don't see how that didn't scare the kids. Maybe they were just very brave children.
They did get spooked at first.
Well, at first they were curious, but,
But then they started stepping back because they heard the voice right there beside him.
Yeah.
Beside them.
Well,
at first.
when he had the microphone thingy, for whatever reason, that was what scared them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to sit there and go, yes, coming to my Quonset hut, little children's. I eat berries. That's my main sustenance.
He could have got, like, sticks and twigs and leaves and...
I don't know. He
nuts.
could have been some kind of cannibal clown.
And why wouldn't he have eaten them?
I don't know.
He had the perfect chance
I'm saying, it's like, this is what I would have thought when I was a child.
I wouldn't have thought of that as a
I
child
was an
at
odd
all.
child. Grew up to be an odd adult.
Like,
But
I'm
that
thinking,
one-
okay, kid me, I would not even think about that sort of thing.
Yes, but you didn't grow up in a house that was haunted either.
I mean, I stayed down there.
You did stay down there, but you were older then. I mean,
And Dad's.
that thing tormented me when I was a kid horribly.
That's
I had some anxiety disorder going on because of that.
Yeah.
And some of the other stuff that went on. But anyhow, so, if you've had experiences with supernatural and paranormal encounters with UFOs, aliens, Sandown clown thingies.
Eddie sort of cryptid.
Yeah, cryptids are always cool.
Yeah.
I like the cryptids.
Urban legends.
Urban legends, if you've got
Folklore.
family legends, regional legends, any of that stuff. If you've just had odd experiences in your life.
Or if you know of any really cool stories.
Yeah, send us an email at cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And the email is always in the description box. And yeah, that one's freaked me out, so I'm going to go back in. Think I'm going to fix me a cup of coffee. It helps me sleep.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us your
you for
time
being a
and
friend.
sharing coffee with us this morning or this evening, whenever you may view this. You're very appreciated. Be sure to like, share, subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it a thumbs up. It's always encouraging.
Please do.
So, anyhow.
Hell yeah.
We'll see you all on the next cup.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.